Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you. That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 43, our third year. What is up, man? Happy 2024.
Dude, you know how many times have you messed that up? Like 2024? Like,
It's funny you say
10
that
days?
because I haven't messed it up. Not at all. And Chris Wood and I had a finance meeting yesterday, and we were just talking about how when we used to not manage like accounts and look at dates and do charts of accounts and enter QuickBook entries, how we used to mess that up all the time. But now when you're so focused on the end of a fiscal year, like it's in your face. So no, haven't messed it up yet.
What's funny is some of the things that I did mess up were QuickBook entries.
Oh gosh, please, no, don't do that.
Just the description though. Yeah,
yeah,
I fixed them.
no.
I was like, man, why?
But you're right.
2024. We're closer to like 1970 now than 1970 is to like whatever that thing was. Something crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's a wild time, man. I don't know.
We're closer to 1960 than we are to 2100, or better yet, the other way around. Anyway, yeah, it's wild.
It's something
Perspective,
bonkers.
man. It doesn't stop. It keeps going. Yeah. So, I mean, we wrapped out last year with you and I hopping on and looking back at all the past episodes, which was cool. Hopefully people enjoyed that one. It's been months since we've had an episode.
Hopefully we didn't lose any listeners during our holiday break, but as most of our listeners probably know, you know, the holiday period gets hectic, and trying to nail down schedules for three people is tough, but we're back, we're ready. I mean, holidays were good, boys had fun.
They're at that age where, like, if you are raising them in the Santa Claus era, like they're at that age where Santa Claus is like real.
You're telling me Santa's not real?
Oh wow. Well, I think we'd do a whole podcast on that. I didn't say Santa was not real. I'm saying that, like, your children wake up on Christmas morning and Santa Claus visits them the hours before, and everything about that is real.
It's great because, like, I naturally don't remember when I came to the Revelation or whatever, but like Owen's asking all those questions now, like, especially like when we watch like the NORAD tracker, you know, it's like he's like, how does he like get here? Like he's moving really fast, and like where's all the stuff? He's like we go to the grocery store and we have all the stuff. Like, how does he ask your mom? Gotta go.
Ask your mom, or cue the Elf movie. I mean, so many options.
Yeah.
I remember like when Briley was asking all the questions in the fifth grade, and I didn't say ask your mom. I was like, Briley, really? Do I got to draw it out for you? Like, is this really even possible? Think about all the homes just in our neighborhood. And suddenly it started to click that I was telling her without telling her that, like, oh no, she got home. She ran in the house. She went running into Lori. Dad said Santa Claus. Blah. I was like, bro, oh, what? And Lori's like, what the what? Anyway, what the perfect kind of story to transition us into episode 43's guest. Today we have Tracie David with us, which is exciting because she is a boy mom. She has raised 3 young boys who are now men, and has probably many similar stories or encounters related to what we just talked about. Tracie, what's happening?
How are y'all?
Well, you just heard we're reminiscing on the past 6 weeks of fun.
The whole Santa thing is a little touchy. You gotta, you know, do you wanna, do you not? And Joe, for you, I feel like technology with kids younger and younger and younger, it takes away the magic. You know, when we were younger, we just had to believe it.
Yeah.
And now kids have the technology to track it and to look at it, and they understand it more because of all the technology. So it's a little harder just to believe in the magic. Now kids have the technology to track it and to look at it, and they understand it more because of all the technology. So it's a little harder just to believe in the magic.
Santa brings gifts, but so does mom and dad and grandma and uncles and all this stuff. Now that everything's like open and out, like Weston would be like, who gave us this gift? And I'll be like, mom and dad. And then Owen's like, no, you said Santa. And I'm like, Santa gave it to mom and dad to give to you. And I put it together. Go to your room. Like I'm just like I
Go
don't
to
know.
your room.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Most men are just as surprised Christmas morning at what Santa brought.
Yes.
In general,
100. There. That is like so. That there was like a meme of that going around. 100% fact. And then the one that was like all dads on Christmas Day and he had like the trash bag. I was like,
Yeah.
there's nothing more truer in life. Yeah. I like the other day Owen was wearing some new shoes. I was like, man, those are nice. When'd you get those? And he was like, you got them for me for Christmas. I was like, sweet. those are nice. They're
Yeah.
But yeah,
The
but
dad with the trash bag's good, dude. You cannot allow a piece of wrapping to sit on the floor for longer than 4 seconds, right?
Owen did it. Owen did it all this year. I just sat back and like ate and drank and smiled and like looked in presents too. I'm like, what is that? Leanne's like, we got it. I'm like looking on the Amazon account, like, yeah, I think we got that one. Like,
if you do it right, so Kim, you mentioned my 3 boys and being grown men. They are 22, going to be 21 in 3 days, and 19. And we have elves. Our elves come at Christmas and they move around the house and did when they were little, and they had shenanigans. And they still expect their elves to move and have shenanigans. They abide by the we're not touching the elves rule. So
now I'm confused. I'm like human elves? What are these elves?
they're little elves, like the elf. You've seen the elf on the shelf?
Yeah.
Okay, so they each got one when they were
Okay.
born, and it comes on, in our house, it arrives the day that the Christmas tree goes up. And then they move around the house together. Our 3, they had cheese ball fights, they had marshmallow, and they don't move during the day. They're in a different place. They rolled toilet paper down the hallway one year. They draw faces. Then as they got older, one year they were in the crock pot with marshmallows and little shot glasses.
The elf on the shelf thing is getting carried away. Like,
Oh,
Owen
it's crazy
to
now.
to the point where like Owen got upset because like they had one in the classroom and like every other kid had one, and he's like, "Where's ours?" I'm like, no, just no," because all the parents are like stressed out, like, "Oh my God, we got to set this thing up and do all these crazy things." Well, we got one, like I don't know, the week before Christmas. I don't know when we got it, and I was like, I opened the like Amazon package and was like, put it in the attic. Like, we'll see if it's even needed next year. Like, no. That's the last thing that like, and it's so selfish, like, right? Like, kids are clean, fed, books, all that, go to bed. It's like, yes, my time. I was like, I set up this damn elf to like make a mess that I then have, like, I'm making a mess to clean up the mess? Nah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, Lori and I never did the off on the shelf thing. Tracy just took it to another level, though, Joe. They had 3. Like every one of the boys had their own, and they would move
And they
them around the
cooked one.
house. Yeah,
Cannibalism.
they're freaking.
Yeah, they did pretty much the same thing, so it wasn't too hard. But there was one time, and it's noted on Facebook, that one of the boys had a bad day, and we went to dinner. When we came back, that one elf had left, because if you're bad or if you touch the elf, it goes back to the North Pole to tell Santa. And the other 2 were devastated because
Perfect.
that elf was missing. The next day, that elf came back and they were all sitting in front of their little children's Bible reading the commandments about honor thy mother and thy father. And the boys were ecstatic because that elf came back.
See, at first you had me like, oh, I went back to North Pole, but Owen knows, like we watched a video yesterday, like there is a flight from JFK that's 11 hours to Finland, and you take this train for another 11 hours, and how to get to the North Pole. And he's like trying to do the math and he's counting. And I'm like, yeah, it's over a day of travel just to get there.
Yeah.
So if I like came back tonight, the elf left, but it came back tomorrow, he'd be like, there's not enough time.
Magic.
We pre-check or nothing. You can't make it. It's science.
Carry on or check in.
Yeah. Dude, I think we could keep going down this road for a while. Tracy, I always like to ask the guests to like, who are you? Like, where are you coming from, and why do you think you're on the podcast?
I'm Tracie David. I live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I am involved or became involved in Ainsley's Angels because I am Lori Rossiter's first cousin. We grew up together. Our parents are siblings. We grew up together as kids. Her and my sister Tanya, who was on a previous podcast, best friends. So most of my childhood memories involve Lori. And then as we got older, you and Lori got married, I got married, and then between us, our 6 children children were all born within like 5 years. So Lori and I had that connection for a while. Not for a while, we still do, but you were gone, I think, most of that time. So she would come stay for a few weeks during, like, I think she came for Easter or spring when the kids were real little. She was pregnant for Camden, I think. So, and then fast forward to Ainsley's Angels of America starting in Kim's sister's living room back in 2011. And here I am.
It's so
There's a lot.
like,
There's a lot
yeah.
there, huh, Joe? Tangents,
We
and
always say, like,
thoroughfares.
there's people that are just listening to this, like, are still semi trying to process, like, who is Kim? They're this, you know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean? There's someone out there right now that's like, yeah, dude, I've been like Googling it. Like, I don't know who this Kim is.
So because Lori's my cousin, Kim is family, so we know him as Kim. But everyone in the Ainsley's Angels world and or military world and or probably his close friends know him as Rooster. If I'm talking to Kim, I talk to him as Kim, but I refer to him in the Ainsley's Angels world, I refer to him as Rooster. It's confusing, but it's what
I've
it is.
only heard, like, I think, like, one male call him Kim, and that's Terry.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So I didn't think we were going. I didn't think we were going down that tangent. I don't know where to go now. Joe, what else would you like to talk about?
So, I mean, yeah, it's the new year, right? It's 2024. It's the beginning of January. We're about to embark on our first big national event of the year at the Louisiana Marathon. But we also launched a new national effort. Hopefully you all have seen or heard about it, of Angel Allies. So if you're listening to this, odds are you're a registered member of the organization. But if you're not, go to the website. You can sign up to be a runner, a rider, a guardian, which is someone that helps out, or just an ally, somebody that may not be able to run or help out, but you love what we do, and you can forward emails and text your friends and tell them and show them all the great things that we're doing for inclusion across the country. So those Angel Allies, if that's you, head over to the website and sign up. But the first one I mentioned was Guardian, and Tracie is the first guardian angel on record for the organization.
Yeah, so in 2011, my sister Tanya called me and she said, "Hey, we love what Kim Rooster and Ainsley are doing, running, these races, and we want to start an organization as Ainsley's Legacy. So come to Christine's house. We're going to have a meeting and get this going." And I was like, "I don't run. I'm not running. I'm not running. I don't run." And she's like, No. We're going to find something for you to do. You're really organized. You're good at email. So just come to the meeting." So there I went in the meeting, and aa@yahoo.com was created. And that's kind of where we started. I didn't really realize, I guess, that I was probably the first guardian angel until Shelley Warner's podcast. And she went into depth talking about the fact that they just took pictures, and that you didn't have to be a runner, you didn't have to be a rider, that there's something that everyone can contribute with. And I was like, you know what? I think I was the first guardian angel because I didn't run. Christine, I think, maybe ran. Kim got her to run, and but I did not run my first 5K until 2017, and it was my first and one and only I'm done, but I did it. And that's a whole nother story. But I never wanted to run and never had an interest, but yet I wanted to be a part of the organization. So I handled all of the emails, and at first Facebook was the first presence, and there wasn't all the different locations. So every time we had a race, I was out there with my camera taking pictures and uploading them. And it was really cool to see, as I uploaded pictures, days later, people changing their profile pictures to the pictures from the event. But yeah, so first guardian angel, I think I hold that title.
You mentioned that to us late last year, and that's what tied us into saying, well, let's bring you on and let's talk about that. Because as Shelley said in episode 7, this is the glue that really holds what Ainsley's Angels does together. It's the volunteers that are doing so many things behind the scenes. And I mean, to this day, every single person in your family that your son became a runner, but like everyone else continues to this day to help in non-running or riding ways. I mean, your husband cooks, food and comes out and cheers us on and supports you in your endeavors. Your oldest two sons have volunteered at numerous events. Your son's a runner. And then you could even look at your brother who pulls the trailer and your sister, Tanya, who continues in leadership roles. Like the list goes on. Your mom, she comes and hands out things and does race registration. Like it all starts really with a group of people who can unify, and then everyone that's unified in that process feels like they have their role, they have a place, they belong. And that's ultimately, Tracie, what led to Joe was like, I wonder if I wonder if Tracie's boss at Edward Jones knows all the things Tracie does for Ainsley's Angels. And then as our wheels started to turn, we were like, Tracie's boss probably doesn't run. He probably doesn't ride. He probably hasn't come out and done guardian angel things. But I bet you he's an ally of Ainsley's Angels because Tracie does so much for it and he's happy for her and he supports what she does. And that's when it hit. It was like angel runner, angel rider, guardian angel, let's have an angel ally. So we're challenging you to get your boss to go on the website and click the button and become an angel ally. I mean, because what's it mean after that? Well, who knows where it goes? Just like who knows where it goes after Tracie creates a Yahoo email address. And here we are 12 plus years later. Who knows where it goes? Just neat. Really, really cool.
I remember exactly where I was at Home Depot, ironically, when we came up, we're talking through this ally thing. And like, exactly, Edward Jones is a perfect example, right? I mean, if your boss signs up to do it, right, and then sees all these good things, then he tells, his friend in Texas at Edward Jones' office. And then it becomes the game of telephone and all this. And next thing you know, there's Edward Jones, partnerships and all these great things, and they're spreading the word or adding us to email distribution lists and everything. So, I mean, I think we really are at the point now within the organization where we truly, 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 truly have a spot for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about the family in Southwest Louisiana, of course, Kim's sister and Lori's cousins, we're all in because we're Ainsley's family. We were all in because we were enjoying what we got to see. And as Ainsley's Angels grew and we started meeting people who didn't have, like our runners, our angel runners, they don't have a child who has disabilities, or they might not work in a field where they work with kids with disabilities. But we know our purpose. Our purpose was because Ainsley's our family and because we believe in everything that you and Ainsley were doing. I remember just being floored at the number of people who they have no ties to Ainsley or anyone particular who may have a disability, and they're just volunteering. They're all in 110%. Every time we get a new ambassadorship, and that ambassador, if we have a lot of ambassadors who have family members who may have a disability, or they work in a community setting where they are active with people with disabilities. So you kind of get their why, but then you occasionally get these few people who are just like, I just believe in what you're doing and I want to be a part of it. And that's just, it's just amazing to me.
There really are a lot of good people,
yeah,
and genuine people out there. I mean, you talk about this thing of ally, right, and volunteers. Like, we would not be talking today in the manner that we are without some of our biggest allies, friends and partners in and at Microsoft. You know what I mean? Like, a good guy said, hey, look, I work at Microsoft, and then here's a buddy of mine who can help you do all these things, and here we are up and running, supported by Microsoft. Like, that's awesome. And those people don't ride or run or volunteer at
Right.
events. There's allies all around us, and we don't even really know it.
Yeah, and when we talk about allies, we're talking you brought the corporate element of it, but like just being an ally to your neighbor, like an opportunity every single. Oh wait, is that a drink? Oh, it's Miller time, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Y'all thought 2024 we weren't going to have Miller time anymore. It's that part of the show where everybody's invited to get their favorite beverage, whatever it may be. If you're tube fed, as I say, Josh, I'm looking at you. Tell your dad, turn that machine on. We invite you as well. So, Tracie, you raised the glass, but that's a neat little cup you have there. Is that for the big Louisiana Marathon?
So that's from 2022. we like to give our participants a memento from the race weekend. And this year we chose to do a cup, which is my favorite cup. So yeah, Louisiana Marathon's coming up Friday. You guys will be flying in for that in Baton Rouge. I think we have 9 states. I'm going to tangent because you called out my cup. So 9 states represented, 14 ambassadorships, and over 60 teams running over 4 races over the 2-day race weekend.
In Baton Rouge. That's pretty special. I actually hope to get this episode released like very soon. We usually like to do it on Tuesdays, but I'd like to get it out maybe this week so people can listen to it while they're going to Baton Rouge, perhaps.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just on the other side of the state line from you at Houston, they saw
Yes.
all the fun we're having in Baton Rouge, and that also has a similar event happening the same weekend, this weekend, that is opened up into the inclusive space. And Heather's leading the show out there. I think all the numbers you just shared with us about Baton Rouge, you have an equal thing happening in Houston. So, but on the I-10 corridor between Houston and Baton Rouge, man, inclusion movement is.
We actually have one of our husband, wife, Blaze and Myra Camp. They roll with us all the time. They go with us to all the travel. Yeah, they're defecting from us this weekend and they're doing Houston. So we're going to allow them one defection or deflection, whatever you call it. But that's something they wanted to experience. So we're excited that they get to go experience Houston.
You just do like, they can do evens in Texas, odd in Louisiana, because Louisiana is a bit odd, so it works out.
Although Louisiana would be evens, right? Because no, you're right. Yeah, break, edit that. Good job, Joe. My numbers are all messed up. I was like, wait, I just did it.
I don't mess up the years.
Yes, touche, bro, touche. Anyway, that's fun. Yeah, but it's one big Ainsley's Angels family all across the country, and everyone having a blast this week and next week, and the race series kicking off in March. Anyway, I could talk so much about the things happening across Ainsley's Angels, but I want to look back a little bit. Well, first, Joe, what are you drinking? Do you have something for Miller Time? Just want to make sure.
I do have something for Miller Time in my mug. It is not Miller. It is actually like kids' sugar-free apple juice, because it was the first thing that was there when I opened. I just drank a tumbler full of Noon, and I opened I don't want something other than water, I guess, and opened the fridge, and it was there, and I was like, yeah, that's what we're going with.
Just to jump back real quick on Myra and Blaze, like how awesome is that? Like we said that 2011 in Christine's living room, starting Ainsley's Angels, and this weekend a rider team had the choice. Do we want to run the marathon in Louisiana at Baton Rouge, or do we want to go to Houston? They had a choice.
Yeah, it's wild. And not only a choice, but we're like invited by the race directors.
Yeah.
Like open arms, like categories established, start lines there, logistics are in place, rider codes are in place, like all of the things. And that we have reflected on recently about how the mission of road racing and inclusive road racing was the focus for so many years, and how now we continue to do that. But this inclusion without limits vision is presenting itself at just the right time for us as an organization, for us as a family, for us as a country, to really lean into what are those things that we could be doing better. Whether it's being an ally to your neighbor or, showing up in your community in a way that makes it more accessible or more inclusive or more feeling of that sense of belonging. And so, yeah, that is a great point. And I love that, Tracie. So as our teams go to Baton Rouge and Houston this weekend, it's like identify things in your community that could be better for everyone. Is there a curb that needs to be fixed? Do we take the time to contact Department of Transportation or the city? Like so many, I have a whole bunch of stuff in my head about how we can be better allies. But great point.
Well,
Joe.
That's great too. Like the neighbor, love thy neighbor, but the neighbor is a great example. Because I got a neighbor who's an elderly gentleman with 2 children, both with special needs. And I say children, they're older than all of us. But there was an issue within the neighborhood a month or so ago. I talked to you about it with his handrail, and the good old HOAs of the world said that's not allowed, and the whole neighborhood came together and like complained. And that's not an issue anymore, because basically probably 249 other homes, like we all signed a thing and emailed everybody, and the the lady at the homeowners organization is probably like, man, that's a lot of emails. But
Yeah. So what you're talking about really is activism, and being an advocate and being an ally. And then Joe, taking it to the next step. So now that that family has their home modified and it's in accordance with HOA for the sake of this instant, has the policy now been changed in writing for your homeowners association that says blah 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 in accordance with ADA? That's
it has not yet, but it is has been discussed because as my neighborhood is just finished completion being built, like as of like 2 weeks ago, we are now taking over the board, and that was one of the things to rewrite, because we also have the chair at the pool that hasn't worked in 5 years.
Yeah, that's adaptive chair at a pool that
Yeah,
facilitates
like
everybody getting in. But like it's like, well, let's just check that box. There's an adaptive swimming pool because we got this
It-
thing and the family's happy over here. No, put it in policy. So I love that the new board's talking about that. That's what I'm talking about. That's awesome.
you mentioned educating allies, right? I mean, education is a huge part of what we do. We have an Angel Ally Development Program where we're taking right now 8 allies and training them and mentoring them and guiding them as they live and work all over the country, and in one case a little bit of the world, to be active, and for that activism and help transform those communities. And if it's the curb, or if it's the handrail, or if it's why is there not a adaptive park in our area, or how come there's not a ramp that goes to the public library. These are all things that our cohort 1 is looking into for their project. If this type of stuff and allyism, if that's a word, and activism is a thing for you, pay attention this spring as we're going to start putting applications out for Angel Ally Development Cohort 2.
Yeah, no, great plug. Good timing on that. And I want to use that to transition back to Tracie to talk about like leadership by example, doing by example. I mean, let's just talk about Devin for a minute. Okay, so your youngest son, 19, he started running with Ainsley's Angels whenever he could like just barely walk. So, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the reason Devin wanted to go and be involved as a runner was why, in your recollection?
Well, we first started Ainsley's Angels here. It was a family effort. So we all went out to the races. Our boys were younger. Devin was 8.5. And they had a turkey trot here, and our kids did the little 1 mile K run where they just run by themselves, and the boys did that. And then I guess it was the spring of 2013, and Devin said, Mom, I want to do what Nanny does. Nanny is Tanya. I want to run. So I was like, well, she's going to have to train you because I'm not. But I think the why, first of all, Devin is that kid that he's going to try anything, go anywhere with anybody. He's just very open to everything. And he ran his first little 5K. He couldn't even see over the handlebars of the little Freedom. The smallest little Freedom was at a Spirit, little smallest Freedom chair. And he ran his first 5K, and the seed was planted. And from the time he was 8.5 until his senior year of high school, he's ran 4 half marathons. He's ran an ultra with you guys. He just, the bug bit him, and that's just something he wanted to do. And so he put his mind to it to do it. And he loved being around everyone. He loved taking the road trips that we would go to. He just really enjoyed, and he's competitive. So there's that.
There is that, and I know that the three of us could talk about Devin stories for a whole podcast. Maybe we just need to bring him on one day. But at the risk of doing that, I want to continue to pull this string. You said the bug bit him.
Yeah.
The bug that bit him was the leadership that he saw with his Aunt Tanya running and pushing. That's the bug that bit him. But there's a similar line here to your brother Tad, and the things that he witnessed that was happening, and what his children chose to do and to still do to this day because of that bug. Tell us about how your brother and his children have gotten involved and still are to this day.
So Tad, Reagan, so Tanya's husband Reagan is our equipment manager. He has the trailer, he maintains the trailer, but Reagan up until recently was a fireman. So there were some races that we would have that Reagan was not available to pull the trailer, and not anyone can just jump in a truck and pull a 26-foot trailer. So Tad was able to jump in and fill that space. In doing so, his son Ben, he is very much a hands-on with manipulating things, machinery, things like that. So Ben jumped in, and he was all about equipment processing and putting chairs together and pumping up tires and helping out. And then that spilled over to Sunset 5K, our annual race we have every year here in Southwest Louisiana. And Tad's whole family comes together for that. Adam, his oldest son, he is on a golf cart, walkie-talkie, ice. They were both Adam and Ben were in Boy Scouts, so they're very much already mentally into the service part of helping people. And then Carly and Sarah stepped up and they started helping as well. Sarah does a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for us for Sunset prepping. But again, I think it's just a family affair. You know, we're doing it because we're liking doing it. And then the boys just kind of fell in line. And, you know, my other two, they get involved, but they didn't get as involved as Devin. But it doesn't mean that they don't want to, or if I ask them to help with Ainsley's Angels, they do. They're usually at the storage building unloading and loading for Sunset weekend. So
You use the word service, and when we're talking about these youth, I mean, how old was Ben when he first started helping the trailer? I mean, he was, you know, maybe a tween.
Ben's 20, so I'd say probably the last 10 years. So
Yeah. So the same, you know, you said service, and I'm tying it to really how we as people feel when we serve. And sometimes, you know, that service can be therapeutic. Sometimes that service can be tied to love of family, love of country, love of community. Ultimately, though, serving is something that every single person can do. And that's the beauty of what we get a chance to do when we do what we do. So serving, so powerful.
it's funny you say that because, again, referencing back to that phone call where Tanya said, we're starting Ainsley's Angels. We're going to have an organization. I don't run. I'm not doing it. She's like, no, you can come. I was like, okay. So for me, mentally, I was like, finally, I'm going to belong to an organization, to something that I can give back, something that I can do for others. I initially thought I was going to be a teacher growing up, went to college for a couple of years, dropped out of college, never went back. Didn't go to be a teacher, but that was always a calling I had. So I really felt, and I wanted to be a SPED teacher, work with the children who have disabilities and or hearing impaired. So this was an eye-opener for me and a way for me to finally achieve sort of what I wanted to do with my life, being involved where I could give back. I did not expect, and I always get choked up when I tell people this, to get back from people what I got back. Family members, the unconditional love from rider athletes who are just ecstatic to see you and thrilled that you're there, no inhibitions, and the parents who just are the caretakers who are just endlessly grateful for everything you do. And you feel like you are race day, Sunset 5K, being pulled into a million directions. You're hot, you're tired, you've been on your feet and working all week on this, and you've got parents who say this is the best day of our lives, and you're like, really? Because let me tell you all the things that are going wrong. But it really floored me very, very quickly how much I got back when I thought that I was supposed to be giving that much.
Yeah, yes, concur.
Yeah.
I think it's also, there's like, you know, I don't want to put a number on it, but for me as the runner, like after doing a race, you know, and the caretaker says, hey, thanks for pushing, you know, Johnny. And it's like, no, thank you for trusting me and allowing me to push it. Or, you know, it's my pleasure, it's an honor to do so. So, and from the runner's standpoint as well, you know, we get so much more back than I think we're putting in, right? Yeah, we're going physically and getting tired and all that, but having that athlete be an athlete for the day or however long it is, like what we're getting back from that is indescribable. I guess, you know, the Inspire Be Inspired circle.
Yeah, man. Whenever you unify and unify happens, you get that sense of belonging. And Tracie, as you got that invitation to come sit in that living room, that invitation is what started the process. And so what we always try to do through our values is to invite and to ensure everyone knows that you are welcome. You are always welcome to come. But, an invitation is one thing, achieving a sense of belonging is another. And so for you, a non-runner going into this running organization, do you ever remember a point where you were extremely comfortable with the fact that you are not a runner, even though you're going to every single one of these races? Did you ever have to struggle with this, well, I'm not running thing?
Yeah, so I got over that when I ran my first 5K.
Okay. So did you,
Go
yeah, so
ahead.
I want to hear all about that. So did you were carrying with you from 2011, 2012 all the way up until 2017 this thing that was unspoken, at least unspoken to me, of maybe not completely belonging? Is that fair to
So
say?
I would hear everyone come back. Just, we got to bang a gong on the race course, and we got sprayed with water, and we got donuts, and we laughed, and we played music. And I would hear that. And then I also, on some of the race courses that I was able to get out on, I captured those pictures. So every picture I captured, no one was like struggling or acting like they just did not. Everyone was having a blast on the race course, and runners would come back and they would talk about, oh, do you remember at mile whatever, and we got to do this? And I'm just sitting there going, I want to go do that. So be careful what you ask for. In November of 16, I went to my doctor, and she's like, you're pre-diabetic. She said, I was already on high blood pressure medicine. You're pre-diabetic. I was 190 pounds. I say it was baby weight, but that's a good 10 years after Devin, so I can't call that. But I've never been one to exercise like my whole life. I've always just been skin and bones, and then I've never had any kind of exercise regimen, and I ate like crap. So that realization hit me, and I was like, okay, I'm like 40 years old. Like I can't be pre-diabetic and 190 pounds. So I started Couch to 5K that January with the intention of I'm going to run a 5K. And started Couch to 5K, which got me running. And then I'm very lucky, or not so lucky in this case, to live on the same street as my sister, who does exercise and does work out, and is very, very regimented. And so she's like, Couch to 5K is not going to cut it. We got to get you toned. And so I'd go run down to her house, and we would have a 45-minute circuit workout around her pool. And then I would run back home. And I went from 190 in November of 16 to 154 at my smallest that next summer. And I was going to run the St. Patrick's Day 5K, 3-miler, because it was at the end of my Couch to 5K 6-week training. But I was out running the night before and pulled something in my leg. I remember walking, I was right by Tanya's house. I walked in crying, and I was like, I pulled something and I'm not going to be able to run. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just run Sunset, because Sunset's very important to us. It's our race. Yeah, these people who put on their own race and then get out there and run it, I don't know how they did that. But I did it. I ran with Tanya, and we chose one of our riders, and who I knew we would have fun with. And I figured if I run with Tanya, I can't run with Devin. He's way too fast. And I don't want to say I hated every minute of it, but I don't think the pictures of me on the race course looked like all the other pictures of people, because I just did not enjoy myself. But Tanya made it fun, and she was an excellent coach. And she was like, okay, we're going to run to this lamppost, and then you can take a break, and we can walk, and da-da-da. But I have a really, really emotional story about the end of that race. So we're approaching the finish. It's 45 minutes in. Most people have finished their race, and it's getting dark. But I'm still trudging along. I see the turn for the finish is right up ahead. And all of a sudden, I see this little shadow, this little bitty shadow running towards me, and it's Devin. And he comes running, and I'm running, and he comes and he runs right alongside me and just steps in. You're doing great, Mom. Come on, Mom. You're almost there, Mom. And I was like not wanting to finish. He ran all the way with me. We made that curve, and two of my best friends who also ran earlier and who are beasts and run very fast, they had come back. So when I crossed the finish line, I had my sister my son, I'm gonna cry, my two best friends all cheering me on. And that was just the most memorable part of that whole race for me. Everything that I didn't like about that race was nullified because I had that love coming to get me, to carry me through the final part. And then I couldn't feel my legs, they were jello.
And as I saw there's just one picture, and we got to put it on our Instagram, as you were leaning into the chair and being pulled by the rider towards the finish, and your family and your friends around you, just the grimace on your face was one of just so much emotion for accomplishing this, but also so much just gratitude for those around you. Just a powerful picture.
I was pushing through. I was like, I decided I was going to do this. I'm going to do this. And then I crossed it and just felt this like relief / exhaustion. It was funny how the adrenaline was just going. Thank God I think when they picked me up, the adrenaline kicked back into high gear. And then when I crossed that finish line, there's pictures of me hugging Greg and my mom, and I think there's a picture of me hugging Lori, or Lori hugging me, and Lori, probably her little 5'2", probably had to hold me up. I just remember thinking I finished it. I did. And it was painful, and the next day I couldn't walk, but I was very proud that I did finish it.
So what changed though in the moment that you finished this? You finally have gotten to a point where you're an angel runner after all these years of wanting to potentially do it and not feeling fully like you belonged. But did anything really change after you finished that 5K as it applied to your true sense of belonging?
No, I just didn't like running. I mean, I loved being out on the course. I loved passing people. All the things that I thought I was missing out on, I did get to experience. So that was enough for me. I was happy with that. And I tell people when they say, "Oh, well, you're with Ainsley's Angels. Do you run?" And I'm like, "No, I don't run. I had one race. I ran it, and then Ainsley and I had a conversation, and she said, Aunt Tracie, if you really don't like running, you can just keep doing all the other things that you do for the organization." And she's fine with that. So we had our own personal conversation.
That's beautiful. And here we are in 2024, and you are officially the executive assistant, the top level of the organization, keeping Joe and I in check with things. And so it reinforces the idea that, like, if in your heart there's this need, this desire, this pulling to serve, there's a role for everybody, and we got to play to your strengths. You got to find your niche. And I'm so glad that we have had the opportunity to share this journey with you, and that you've been there since day one, and you're here now again, keeping Joe and I in check. So with much
I
gratitude,
love
thank you.
seeing how everything's evolving too, and how my role has changed. I'm still lead guardian angel for Southwest Louisiana. I still have a lot of responsibilities on the local level, but also I like being involved on the national level as well, to kind of encompass all of it. And I think it's really cool to look back to say, I'm not a runner, Tanya. I'm not going to come to this. Like, I don't have anything to contribute. And fast forward, and here I am. So you just don't know. The possibilities are limitless, especially if you have people who believe in you. My role with Ainsley's Angels has changed a lot on the national level as we grow and as we move things around and take on new, like you said, stepping outside of just being a running organization. What can we do? And I'm very thankful and blessed that you guys are like, okay, how do we get this accomplished now? And who's the best person for that? Oh, look, what about Tracie? She's good at this and this and this. And it's just a blessing.
It's on the website, right? Like, the guardian angel is the glue that holds it together. I would argue that a runner showing up on race day, pushing a rider, coming back, turning the chair, and then going to drink their beer has the easy job. You know what I mean? Like, it can't be done without, your family, as you talked about, right? And Tad and Ben and Reagan, all these people that are pulling the trailer, setting the chairs up, making sure everything's safe. I mean, that's the best feel. That's one of the best feelings. Like, you mean I just got to show up and run? Got it. That's easy. I mean, so that's a lot of pressure on the other side of those guardian angels, and like, cannot be done without you and them across the country. So yeah, talk about the feeling of being included. Y'all are included. There is no doubt about that.
You're spot on, Joe. Absolutely. What just a grand family across the country. Everybody has their role. Speaking of like across the country and having a role and like how we got founded and all those things, we have often referred back to a conversation about couldn't Ainsley have just done bowling or badminton or something other than running? So maybe now's the time. Like, can you take us back to the moment where that phrase was first stated? Anybody?
So I am not a morning person. I do not like to wake up early and have to get up according to an alarm and jump out of bed and go. I'm not a morning person. So most races in Southwest Louisiana, especially when it's warm, are in the morning because that's when it's the coolest. So y'all are an hour ahead of us. So there have been several mornings for several years that Kim would get a random text from me that said, and it's 7 in the morning here or 6:30 in the morning here, that said, and it's cold or it's hot. And I'm like, you and Ainsley couldn't have just taken up bowling. Like, that's inside. It's not open at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's heated, it's air conditioned, but they chose to run outside in the elements instead. So I haven't sent you one of those in a while, but I'll probably tell you that this weekend because it's supposed to be cold at TLM and it's early. TLM is always early. Our wake up time is anyway. Yeah.
It's now. Your wake up time is now.
Yes, just do not sleep. No, that's great. No, that's funny. Yeah, no, she didn't do the bowling or the badminton thing. She's taken to the roll with the wind thing here in Virginia Beach. Always a good wind, always in your face. So yeah. Wow. So now we got the full story there. That's fun. Well, you've also been able to listen to all of these episodes that we've done on the podcast, and I always like to try to ask, folks from time to time, is there any like previous episode that has stood out to you, or a guest, or a moment, or something you connected with? Because ultimately, that's all we're trying to do with this podcast is tell stories and uplift each other and kind of share. Because everybody's got a story. And I don't think everybody knew this element of your journey about how you felt a certain way about not being a runner until you didn't feel a certain way anymore. So anything stand out? Anything stand out?
So I really like one of the things that we talked about, Christine and Tanya and I have talked about before, is when we first started Ainsley's Angels, our focus was not on what someone's disability was. It was, let's get them in the chair, let's have a good time, but their disability is part of them. So I have enjoyed the podcast listening to, I hate to say it this way, but like we go up to parents and go, okay, and what does he have? Like, what is, what is their disability? But you don't want to focus on it. But at the same time, I want to know, like, what are his limitations? What aren't his limitations? Tell me more about how this disability affects him. And so I've enjoyed learning a lot of the podcast, the different ones, like Sebastian. Like listening to that podcast and watching the podcast, he can communicate with you clear as day. I've learned to tune in more because of the podcast with some of our rider athletes who I didn't think before could communicate, be more in tune to them. And of course, being around them more, you're going to learn their mannerisms and understand what they say. But it's brought me to a new awareness with our rider families as to paying more attention. And just because they're smiling, there's a whole lot more behind just those smiles. They have things to say. And if I listen close enough, I'm going to hear them. And Sebastian was just one of them that I can just think of off the top of my head, that whole episode. Of course, she makes it, her point to make sure everybody hears Sebastian. And she does a real good job of bringing attention to him, and I just love them. They're so much fun. But yeah, that's one of the ones that really stood out. Along with I think Craig McDaniels. I loved his story of how him and his wife met and how they have all these children. Like their why, everyone's why is my interest.
It's just having that conversation, you know what I mean? And I remember one specific time it was Run With Your Heart, and we went to a restaurant for dinner in Jacksonville. Angie was in her Hoyt chair at that time, and Rooster was just, bull in a china shop trying to get her in there. And people start looking at her, and he's like, "This is Ainsley, you can say hello." And then another time was at a one of the Cards for Kids events in Hampton Roads, and one of the poker players asked Rooster as he was speaking, what, for lack of better terms, like what was wrong with the rider, and he was like, "Ask her, she's here." So it's just a matter of like
Yeah.
having that conversation. And again, somebody who had no connection with the disability community until 2008, like I probably would have said the same thing there. You know what I mean? I did do the said the same thing. I asked Rich and I's friend, like, what's wrong with this chick, basically. You know what I mean? I didn't know any better. And it goes back to that education and advocacy. So then we can celebrate.
Celebrate. Yeah, you nailed it, man. That's spot on. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Tracy, because we never really know the impact that these little conversations are having. We know what the impact that they have on each of us individually, Joe and I individually and collectively, and we know what our guests tell us the impact was after the chat. But to know that as you've listened to 2 years of conversations, 42 conversations, that there are things that stand out that are right in line with what we're trying to do. It is to bring to the forefront perspective. Because if we don't have the perspective of others, how the heck are we going to advocate for others? How the heck are we going to be allies for others? You can't, because all you have is your own perspective. And there's
Right.
things that you think the world needs, or that a person needs, or that a community needs, but without ever taking the time to realize that, hey, Sebastian really doesn't need any help with communicating. We need help with understanding.
Correct.
Seek first to understand.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's
so you
perfect.
say you don't know what your impact is on these podcasts. So perfect example. When y'all first started the podcast and you had, y'all were on and Christine was on and Lori was on, it was like Briley was on. It's like, okay, well, and then we're going to go through, different people. And I was like, man, I don't really have a story. Like, I don't really have I'm not a runner. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. My perspective about myself was I didn't really have anything interesting enough to be on a podcast. And then Shelley Warner talked about the guardian angel, and that just kind of planted a seed in my head. And then as I listened to more and more podcasts, I was like, maybe this is something that I can contribute to. Maybe if I come on saying how I'm not a runner, I never exercised a day in my life, but here I am 12 years in this organization, involved in all aspects except the running. I'll run if I have to, but I'm not going to like it. But anyway, but yeah, so your podcast, that's a great affirmation for the two of you right there, that these podcasts, they touch someone. The perspective of that person has to acknowledge that they're being touched and do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. So it's one thing to be invited to the table, and it's a whole another thing to actually feel like you belong at the table and that you can take action and
Yeah.
be part of the solution and have a role and have impact. Like, yeah, and that's what I love to celebrate, is when a person achieves that moment in their journey where they actually feel like they have had an impact, like they matter, like they are seen. Because until we get to a point in our journeys where we feel like we're seen or appreciated, it can take you into a lot of different thoroughfares, should I say.
Right.
So it's good. This has been fun. I really appreciate you taking the time today to join us, but also having the courage and the willingness and the openness to saying, yeah, I can do this podcast guest thing. So I appreciate that.
No problem. I was glad to do it. I'm glad it's done. It's another thing I can check off that I've done that didn't think. I like people. I love talking with people, but to put me like on the spot in front of a group of people, I usually don't do well, which people find odd about me. So even though it's just the two of you and y'all are like my brothers, it's still a little intimidating, but I'm glad that I can check this box that it's something that I accomplished.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And they had the love and support from y'all to do so. Kind of like my
Yes.
little runners who came back and got me.
Man, I tell you, that's a big deal to us. Like, to create a space in which you feel safe. I mean, that is a big deal. And to tell two jarheads that, jarhead slogan for Marine, slang for Marine, that they make you feel safe. Like, that's a nice testament. Emotionally safe. I mean, physically
Yeah,
safe.
yeah. The key, yeah, exactly. The key there was emotionally safe, for sure.
Typically, we have Marines to keep us physically safe. Nobody calls up the Marines for emotional sanity or safety, but maybe they should more these days. So as we get ready to wrap out the episode, Tracy, I want to ask you two little fun things. This is going to be fun. I'm going to give you a date, and then I want you to tell me all the things about that date that come to mind without overthinking it. We're going to do it with two different dates, and this is little known facts. Here we go. Ready? And 4th of July.
4th of July, you and Lori's anniversary, also my brother's birthday. And little known fact is that was my husband and I, Greg's first like family outing date was at y'all's wedding. And we actually have a picture that has been up in our living room from y'all's wedding that stays in a frame. So you and Lori are always present in our living room because every time we look at that picture, it's from y'all's wedding.
I love that. And like every guest heard 4th of July and said America's birthday. And we made no connection to that at all. We have our own America's birthday. Nope. It's called, all the things. Okay, that was cool. All right, one other one for little known fact, and hopefully my dates are right. 14 August.
That's my anniversary and Lori's birthday. Right?
Birthday. So you're telling me that your first official date was at Lori's wedding, and your wedding day became Lori's birthday the next year?
Correct. And let's keep going. My mom and dad's anniversary, which is Lori's aunt and uncle, is the same as Camden's birthday.
Wow. I didn't know about that one. At least if I did, I forgot.
Aunt Vicky and Uncle Terry, which is Lori's parents, their anniversary is Devin's birthday.
Oh, you got to make it stop. Wow.
Wait, I think there's something else. Maybe that's it.
I'm sure there is. That's cool. So little known facts and dates and numbers. You know how I geek out on that stuff.
I know. So yes.
Yeah. So Joe, anything that you want to offer before we close this out and give Tracie the last word?
Yeah, it's that time again, folks. 49th running of the Marine Corps Marathon last weekend in October, Washington, D.C. If you would like to participate as a runner, a rider, or even a guardian, email Joe at ainsleyangels.org or go to the link in the description to find out how you can be part of the charity team for Ainsley's Angels and run with the Marines.
I love that. So email Joe at ainsleyangels.org. In case I forget to put anything in the description, that's your fail-safe. That's perfect.
No, I will not let you forget to put it in the description.
So welcome to 2024 and the series of what will be probably another 20 episodes of Joe mentioning the Marine Corps Marathon at every trip. What about next year though, dude? The 50th running.
So yeah, next year, 2025, the 50th running of the Marine Corps Marathon. It's going to be a special one. If you like what we've done for the past 10 years, just wait until next year and you can find out more about the 2025 running the 50th anniversary at our dinner Saturday night this year. So you got to run this year to know about next year.
Okay, that's a good dangle. I like that. And of course, Tracie, we're going to see you this next couple days, arriving in Baton Rouge. We're going to have a dinner, break some bread Saturday night. Remind everybody that we have a podcast. It'll be out there. We're on Instagram. We're going to post some pictures. Tracie's going to get us some pictures for some of the things we talked about in the episode. We hope y'all had a good time, and we want to give Tracie an opportunity to close us out. So, Tracie, what do you want to leave our listeners with as they prepare to carry on with their plans of the day?
Never underestimate yourself. If someone approaches you because they think that you can contribute something and you think, no, that's really not my realm, give it a chance because you never know where you're going to end up. Just be involved, be kind, and just treat everyone with the same kind of respect you want to have for yourself, and just smile.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.